The Places of Poetry project began almost by accident. Andrew and I realised we were both working on the same thing, which is Michael Drayton's 17th century poem Polyolbion. And once we realised we were doing the same thing but approaching it from different perspectives, one thing led to another, as they say. And we got to the stage where we thought it might be more interesting to actually face outwards and to make something that was truly polyvocal.
A way of using poetry across the whole nation to encourage people to engage with questions of place and heritage and identity in the way that Drayton did in the 17th century, but here we're drawing all sorts of people in to these questions and to these activity of writing poetry.
And I'm here at Places of Poetry looking for ways in which we can work with poets to broaden the reach of the kind of things we do already with poetry and find new ways to create fresh poetry from new voices in Cumbria and further afield. It's been great to hear the different voices from the room of organisations that aren't perhaps normally linked to poetry, finding something really exciting about ways they can interpret their heritage through working with poets and through working with creative writing.
So generally, I think we're looking for people to engage on a really nice deep level with Dovedale. It's a really beautiful site, it's really popular with locals and with tourists, but it's the sort of place that people come and they just go for a walk, they have a picnic and they go home and they don't really get anything else out of it. And we'd really like them to just take some time to stop, sort of really take it in and really think about why it's so special and maybe why they visited, and actually, you know, a little bit more connection to the place.
I like to think that identity, you don't like spring up from the ground like a dandelion, but that you kind of discover your sense of self through movement, through exchange. And so I'm interested in how people will engage with this kind of monolithic thing, Stonehenge, who aren't from England necessarily, or like me, who are kind of partially English. So I think that's, you know, where the most interesting stuff happens. I'm kind of interested in poems which are self-aware, which are interested in exploring and kind of like unraveling the threads between self, a self and the environment on which it's based.
So we're going to have a poet in residence for a few days during July. That poet is going to work with some community groups. So we're going to try to bring more local residents into this project than one may sort of think of, because, you know, the Rumbass receives over 1 million visitors from all over the country and all over the world each year, but we're hoping that this will engage with local residents.
For me, part of it is thinking about the idea that a landscape is not owned by anyone, but people move through it and have certain resonances in that space, and trying to think about what my resonances are. I think in writing about somewhere like Hadrian's Wall, I'm tapping into a corpus of material written about the Northeast and about that contested space. I think there are so many poems of the same place which differ, and I love that. I love that range.
It's important to involve the community, local people of all ages, so that I intend to be, around to talk to people over a cup of tea and get their impressions and listen to their history and their anecdotes.
Byker's got a really diverse community. It's got lots of young people, old people. It's got lots of different languages and people from different backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures. And I really hope that it'll bring a voice to the community that might be different to the national preconception, let's say, of what you imagine when you think about Byker. Ralph Erskine, when he built the place, had a very clear idea about community and how that space should be used by community. And it's really interesting to see how and whether that community idea is still the same today, and whether it's changed and how much and in which ways from the voices of the people who live there now.
It's the uniqueness. There's a certain concept of what a poetry festival is. Of course, you'd associate it with places of heritage and arts organisations, and actually that's one of the things we are really interested in at the Oval, is just being a bit different and being creative and looking at different ways that we can relate to people and different understandings that people can have of the ground.
I'm really interested in the inclusive nature of the project, so the fact that we have a range of different poets working in England and Wales, and also the fact that it's very public facing, so that people can drop their poems onto this digital map. Yeah, I'm hoping to kind of come to it from an eco-poetry perspective, so thinking about how people might engage with that place, what kind of creatures might be living in the river, and the way in which the Seven Rivers Trust has a kind of conservation initiative and aims to enhance some of those habitats. So I'm really keen to learn more about that and hope that it will influence the writing.
That on the surface you just think, oh, you go there and write about what's there, but of course every space demands a different kind of writing. It often it has already its own kind of languages attached to it. What's coming through from the discussion is how important it is to kind of immerse yourself in that and work from the place as much as kind of making room for yourself as a writer to have a kind of skew or angle on it.
There's been lots of really interesting conversations around identity and poetry situated within a specific place, and what that means for the contemporary relevance of that today, rather than just purely citing it within history. And that's something that we are particularly interested in looking at along kind of the Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah, I think because it's such a well-known and recognised World Heritage Site, it obviously comes with people's preconceptions, and I think it's about breaking down what people think they know about Hadrian's Wall and actually making it something that can be conceived however you want it to be.
And obviously, although we're working with these 13 organisations across the country, what we want to do is create opportunities for all sorts of other organisations and all sorts of other individuals and schools and so forth to become involved in the project. And that's one of the things we're doing by creating all sorts of resources that will be available on our website to make this as open and accessible as it possibly could be.